My father had just passed. The room still smelled like grief, and I hadn't even unpacked his office. But when I walked into the boardroom, the manager didn't offer condolences. He looked at me and said, "If you're the new president, we'll all quit." I paused, looked around at the others, then simply replied, "Thank you," and that's when everything changed. "My dad died unexpectedly," manager says. "If you're the president, we'll all quit," but what I did left them. Breathless, the morning began like any other, with the faint hum of my alarm clock slicing through the stillness of dawn. I reached out groggy to silence it, already dreading another day at work, another day trying to prove myself in a company that had always felt more like Dad's domain than mine. My father, Richard Hayes, was not just a man, but an institution within our family-owned business. Hayes Innovations, he built it from scratch, a modest tech startup operating out of his garage, to one of the most respected names in software development. To me, he wasn't just a dad. He was my hero, my mentor, and sometimes even my biggest critic. And now he was gone. I remember sitting on the cold hospital chair, staring blankly at the floor, as if hoping for some divine intervention to rewrite reality. The doctor's words echoed holly in my ears, massive heart. Attack, no warning, no time to say goodbye, just gone in an instant. Everything changed. Not only did I lose the person who shaped every part of my life, but I also inherited his legacy and all the weight that came with it. By noon, news spread throughout the office faster than wildfire. Whispers filled the corridors, punctuated by sympathetic glances cast my way. It didn't take long before they called an emergency meeting in the boardroom, the same room where Dad used to sit confidently at the head of the table, commanding respect without ever raising his voice. Now, I stood there awkwardly, feeling small under their collective gaze. They were waiting for answers, waiting for leadership, waiting for something, but what could I possibly offer? I wasn't ready for this. "Listen." Greg, the senior manager, finally broke the tense silence. His tone was clipped, almost accusatory. "We need clarity here. Who is going to lead us moving forward?" Before anyone else could respond, Sarah, one of the project managers, chimed in nervously. "Well, technically Emma is next in line, right? She's Richard's daughter." A murmur rippled through the room, growing louder until Greg slammed his fist against the polished oak table. "Absolutely not," he barked, standing abruptly. "If she thinks she can waltz in here and call herself president after years of being nothing more than Richard's shadow, then we might as well pack up and leave now. None of us signed up for this kind of amateur hour." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Amateur hour, that's how they saw me. A wave of anger surged inside me, hot and sharp, but beneath it lay something deeper and ache. So profound it threatened to swallow me whole. How dare he dismiss me like that? Didn't he know how much I loved this company, how much I'd sacrifice for it? But instead of lashing out, I forced myself to breathe deeply, clutching the edge of the table for support. "You want to quit?" I asked quietly, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to steady it. "Fine, go ahead, walk out the door. But before you do, let me remind you of something. This isn't about me. This isn't even about my father anymore. This is about you, about whether you believe in what we've built together, or if you're willing to throw it all away because your scared." Silence fell over the room, thick and suffocating. Some looked down guiltily while others exchanged uneasy glances. For a moment I thought maybe I'd pushed too far, said too little. Then Greg crossed his arms defiantly and leaned back in his chair. "Prove it," he challenged. "Prove to us that you're capable of leading this company, otherwise none of us will. Stick around to watch it crumble." And just like that, the gauntlet was thrown that night. Sleep eluded me entirely. Every time I closed my eyes, fragments of memories played on. Loop: Dad teaching me how to code when I was 8, cheering me on during school presentations, telling me stories about the early days of Hay Innovations when failure seemed inevitable, yet somehow thrilling. He always told me success isn't about never falling, it's about getting back up every single time. Those words haunted me now, urging me to rise above the chaos threatening to consume me. As dawn crept into my bedroom, painting the walls with soft hues of gold and pink, I made a decision. If they wanted proof, I would give them proof, not just of my competence, but of my commitment. I spent hours drafting plans, analyzing reports, and brainstorming ideas. By the time Monday rolled around, I walked into the office armed with a vision so bold it left even me breathless. Good morning, everyone, I announced as I entered the conference room carrying a stack of folders. Thicker than any of them expected gone was the uncertainty from last week. In its place stood determination etched into every line of my face. I know tensions have been high, and I understand why change is scary. Losing someone is irreplaceable. As my father, well, it shakes the foundation of everything we thought we knew. But here's the thing. We don't have to let fear dictate our future. Instead, we can use it as fuel to grow stronger, smarter, better. Greg raised an eyebrow skeptically. Talk is cheap, Emma. Show us what you've got without hesitation. I opened the first folder and slid copies across the table. Inside were detailed proposals outlining new product lines, expansion strategies, and innovative marketing campaigns designed to catapult innovations into uncharted territory. Each idea had been meticulously researched, supported by data, and tailored specifically to leverage our strengths while addressing weaknesses. This isn't just pie-in-the-sky dreaming, I explained firmly. These are actionable steps backed by months of preparation. Yes, I've been learning quietly in the background, observing how things operate, identifying areas for improvement, and yes, I intend to implement these changes immediately with your help. For a moment, no one spoke. The air buzzed with anticipation as they flipped through the documents, their expression shifting from skepticism to intrigue. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. These are actually pretty impressive, she admitted reluctantly. But executing them won't be easy. Are you sure you're ready for this? I'm not sure of anything right now, I confessed honestly, except that I refuse to let my father's legacy die with him. If you're willing to trust me even just a little, I promise to give everything I have to make this company thrive together. We can honor his memory by pushing boundaries and achieving greatness. One by one, heads nodded around the table. Even Greg softened slightly, though his jaw remained stubbornly clenched. All right, he muttered gruffly. Let's see what you're made of over the following weeks. I threw myself into the work with relentless energy. Late nights became routine, fueled by endless cups of coffee and sheer willpower. I held weekly check-ins, with each department listening intently to their concerns and incorporating their feedback into our evolving strategy. Slowly but surely, resistance gave way to collaboration. Doubt transformed into belief, and resentment melted into camaraderie. But challenges persisted. Suppliers questioned our ability to meet deadlines. Clients hesitated to renew contracts. Competitors seized opportunities to undermine menace. Yet every obstacle only strengthened my resolve. Whenever frustration threatened to overwhelm me, I reminded myself of Dad's favorite mantra: when life knocks you down, get up swinging. Then came the day when disaster struck again, this time in the form of a major client pulling out unexpectedly. Panic rippled through the ranks as projections plummeted overnight. Once again, Greg stormed into my office, slamming papers onto my desk. This is exactly why we shouldn't have trusted you, he shouted angrily. You've ruined everything. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Taking a deep breath, I met his fiery gaze head on. No, Greg, you're wrong. This isn't failure, it's redirection. So watch me turn this around. And so, with gritted teeth and unwavering determination, I devised a daring plan to win back not only that client, but also others who had begun slipping away. It involved risks, huge ones, but calculated risks nonetheless. As I presented the proposal to the team, their initial skepticism morphed into cautious optimism. Perhaps, just perhaps, we stood a chance after all. What happened next would test us beyond anything we'd faced before and redefine what it truly meant to be a leader. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights, endless phone calls, and countless cups of coffee. I knew the stakes were higher than ever. If this plan failed, it wouldn't just be my credibility on the line. It would be the future of Innovations itself. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me like an invisible hand. But instead of letting it crush me, I used it to fuel my resolve. My strategy was audacious, perhaps even reckless by some standards. It involved pivoting our flagship product, a software suite designed for small businesses, into something entirely new, a modular platform tailored to enterprise-level clients. This wasn't just a tweak, it was a complete overhaul, requiring us to re-engineer core function, Altis expand server capacity and build integrations with systems we'd never touched before. But there was no time for hesitation. Every hour wasted meant another client slipping through our fingers. I gathered the team in the boardroom once more, spreading out blueprints, flowcharts, and timelines across the table. "This is our Hail Mary," I said, my voice steady, despite the storm raging inside me. "If we pull this off, we'll not only win back the clients who doubted us, we'll position ourselves as leaders in a market we've barely scratched the surface of. But make no mistake, this will push every single one of us to our limits." Greg crossed his arms, skepticism etched into every line of his face. "And if we fail, then we go down swinging," I replied, without missing a beat. "But failure isn't an option, not while I'm still breathing." To their credit, the team didn't flinch over the past weeks. They had seen glimpses of what I was capable of, how I rolled up my sleeves alongside them, how I listened when they voiced concerns, how I refused to back down even when things looked grim. Slowly but surely, trust had begun to take root. Now faced with this monumental challenge, they chose to stand with me. The next month was nothing short of grueling. Developers worked around the clock debugging code and optimizing performance. Designers revamped user interfaces, ensuring the platform was intuitive yet powerful enough to meet the demands of larger organizations. Sales teams reached out to former clients, pitching the upcoming changes and securing tentative commitments. Meanwhile, I juggled meetings, negotiations, and crisis management, often collapsing into bed long after midnight, only to rise again at dawn. There were moments when doubt crept in, whispering cruel truths about how impossible this task truly was. One particularly brutal evening, after hours spent troubleshooting a critical bug that threatened to derail the entire project, I found myself alone in the office, staring blankly at lines of code on my monitor. My eyes burned from exhaustion, and my body ached from sitting hunched over for too long. For the first time since taking over, I allowed myself to cry, silent tears streaming down my cheeks as the enormity of everything hit me all at once. Dad's absence felt sharper than ever in those quiet, lonely hours. How many times had he sat in this very chair, wrestling with problems far greater than mine? Had he ever doubted himself? Or did he always know exactly what to do? As if summoned by my thoughts, memories of him flooded my mind, his laughter echoing through the holes during late-night brainstorming sessions, his unwavering confidence when others faltered, his gentle reassurance whenever I stumbled. He believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself, and now, whether he was here or not, I owed it to him, and to everyone counting on me to keep going. Wiping away my tears, I took a deep breath and dove back into the work. There would be time to grieve later. Right now, I had a company to save. Finally, the day arrived. Our revamped platform launched with fanfare, accompanied by a live demo streamed to potential clients worldwide. The atmosphere in the office was electric, a mix of anticipation and nerves. Everyone gathered in the conference room, watching the screen as I stepped onto the virtual stage, microphone in hand. "Good morning," I began, my voice trembling slightly, but growing stronger. "With each word today marks a new chapter for Hayes Innovations, not just as a company, but as a community, united by innovation, resilience, and purpose. What you're about to see represents months of hard work, sacrifice, and collaboration. It's more than just software. It's a promise to deliver solutions that empower your businesses to thrive in an ever-changing world." Behind me, the presentation unfolded seamlessly, showcasing sleek designs, advanced features, and real-time demonstrations of the platform's capabilities. As I spoke, I could feel the energy shift, not just in the room, but among the audience tuning in remotely. Questions poured in during the Q&A, a session eager and engaged. By the end of the presentation, several high-profile clients had already expressed interest in signing contracts. When I returned to the office, the team erupted into applause. Some cheered, others hugged, and a few wiped away tears of relief and pride. Even Greg cracked a rare smile, clapping me on the back as he muttered, "Not bad, kid, not bad at all." But the victory was bittersweet as the celebrations continued around me. I slipped away to Dad's old office, the one I had avoided entering until now, Sitting behind his desk, surrounded by remnants of his presence, I let the emotions wash over me, joy mingled with sorrow, triumph intertwined with loss. I wished he could have been here to see this moment, to share in the success we had achieved together. Yet as I sat there, I realized something profound. He was here in every decision I made, every challenge. I faced every ounce of courage. I summoned, he was with me. His legacy lived on, not just in the company, but in the people who carried forward his vision, including me in. The weeks that followed, business boomed. Clients flocked to us, impressed by both the quality of our product and the tenacity with which we delivered it. Revenue soared, morale skyrocketed, and Hayes Innovations became synonymous with excellence. Once more yet, amidst the accolades and achievements, I remained grounded. Success wasn't measured by numbers or titles. It was measured by impact, by the lives we touched and the futures we shaped. One afternoon, as I walked through the bustling office, I paused to watch my team interact. Laughter filled the air, ideas flowed freely, and camaraderie radiated from every corner. These weren't just employees anymore, they were family together. We had weathered storms, overcome obstacles, and emerged stronger than ever. And then, as if fate itself conspired to remind me of how far we'd come, I received an email from someone unexpected, the CEO of the company, that had initially pulled out, citing lack of faith in our ability to adapt. His message was brief but heartfelt. Emma, congratulations on the incredible turnaround. You've proven skeptics like me wrong and inspired believers like your team. Count us in as partners moving forward. Reading those words, I couldn't help but smile. We had done it against all odds. We had risen from the ashes of uncertainty and forged a path toward greatness. But this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning, because life, much like business, is unpredictable. Challenges will arise, setbacks will occur, and doubts will creep in. But as long as we stand together with courage, resilience, and an unshakable belief in what's possible, we can face anything that comes our way, and so with renewed determination. I turned back to the work ahead. After all, the story of Ha Innovations was still being written, and I intended to ensure it ended with triumph. The months that followed were a whirlwind of growth, innovation, and transformation. Hayes Innovations wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving. Our revamped platform became the gold standard in enterprise software solutions, earning accolades from industry leaders and securing partnerships with some of the biggest names in tech. Clients who had once doubted us now praised our adaptability and vision. Investors clamored to be part of our journey, and media outlets hailed us as a beacon of resilience in an ever-evolving market. But for me, the true measure of success wasn't found in headlines or balance sheets. It was in the quiet moments, the late-night brainstorming sessions where creativity sparked like wildfire, the spontaneous celebrations when milestones were reached, the heartfelt thank yous from team members who felt valued and empowered. These were the threads that wove together the fabric of something greater than any one person, a shared legacy. Greg, once my fiercest critic, became one of my most trusted allies. His initial skepticism had given way to admiration, not because I had proven him wrong, but because he saw firsthand how much I cared, not just about the company, but about the people within it. One evening, as we wrapped up a particularly grueling project, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "You know," said thoughtfully, "your dad would have been proud." I smiled softly, feeling a lump rise in my throat. "Thanks, Greg. That means more than." As the first anniversary of Dad's passing approached, I found myself reflecting on everything that had transpired since that fateful day. So much had changed, not just externally, but internally. I was no longer the same woman who had walked into that boardroom trembling under the weight of expectations and grief. I had grown stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And yet there were still days when the absence of his voice, a guiding force I had relied on for so long, felt unbearable. To honor his memory, I decided to host a special event at the office, a day dedicated to celebrating not only what we had achieved, but also the values Dad instilled in all of us. We transformed the main conference room into a tribute space, filling it with photos, memos, and stories from employees about how Richard Hayes had impacted their lives. Some recalled his mentorship, others his humor, and many his unwavering belief in their potential.
Ow.
The room buzzed with laughter, tears, and gratitude. A testament to the indelible mark he had left behind. At the center of it all stood a large plaque engraved with words. I knew he would have approved of success isn't measured by what you accomplish alone, but by the lives you touch along the way. When it came time for me to speak, I stepped up to the podium, my heart pounding, looking out at the sea of faces, people who had become my second family. I took a deep breath and began a year ago. I stood before you unsure of whether I could fill the shoes of the man who meant so much to all of us. To be honest, I'm still not sure. I can, but what I've come to realize is that I don't have to, because my father's legacy doesn't live in one person. It lives in all of us in the work we do. The care we show each other, and the dreams we dare to chase. Tears glistened in the eyes of those gathered, but so did smiles. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the sharp sting of loss quite so acutely. Instead, I felt surrounded by love, by purpose, by hope. In the years that followed, Hayes innovations continued to soar. We expanded globally, launched groundbreaking products, and fostered a culture rooted in collaboration and innovation. Yet even as we reached new heights, I never lost sight of why we started this journey in the first place: to honor a man who believed in the power of possibility. On the 5th anniversary of Dad's passing, I returned to the hospital where it had all begun. Standing outside the building, I clutched a small envelope containing a letter I had written to him, a letter filled with gratitude, memories, and promises kept. As I released it into the wind, watching it flutter away like a bird taking flight, I whispered, "Thank you, Dad, for everything." And then turning toward the horizon, I walked away, not with sadness but with peace, because while endings are inevitable, legacies endure. And ours was just beginning. They thought losing him would break me, thought I'd walk in unsure, fragile, afraid to lead. But what they didn't know was that I'd been watching him lead my whole life. I knew every corner of the company, every name on the payroll, every value he built from the ground up. So when the manager made his announcement, bold, smug, and expecting a reaction, he didn't get anger or fear. He got clarity. I didn't beg them to stay. I didn't offer promises or bribes. I simply said, "Thank you," because anyone who needed a man's name to respect a woman's leadership never belonged at that table in the first place. Within 24 hours, they cleared their desks, and within a week, I filled those seats with people who believed in building, not tearing down. People who valued legacy, not ego. And when the first monthly report under my leadership beat projections, the silence from the doubters said more than their threats ever did. I didn't need to out-talk them. I just needed to outlast them. My father didn't raise me to follow behind him. He raised me to lead beside him, and eventually beyond him. And though he wasn't there to see that moment, I know he would have smiled. Not because I won a battle, but because I stood for what he taught me: dignity, vision, and the strength to move forward without needing permission. So the next time someone thinks they can shake your foundation in the middle of your grief, remember this: sometimes your greatest answer is the calmest one. And sometimes, when someone threatens to leave, the most powerful words you can say are, "Thank you," not out of anger, out of wisdom, because not everyone who walks away is a loss, and not every empty chair is a problem. Some are just space for better people to arrive.